everybody. The following video is a recording of a webinar that we had to talk about smart trainers and how you can set them up in your home to do indoor training. The presentation is given by our friend and member, Jack Kramer, who does coaching at Greshfit. They have online training sessions using Zwift. A lot of people use Zwift in the club. We have club rides using Zwift as well. So if you want to participate in any of these activities, you have to have a smart trainer, and Jack's going to give you an overview of how you approach getting one and setting it up. I hope you find the information informative. If you have any questions, you can just direct them to me or Tim or Jack, and one way or another you'll get an answer. Okay, thanks.
80s. And, most of the time, during my career in cycling, staying fit indoors meant riding on one of these crazy things, one of these old magnetic trainers that, made a horrible racket and were horrible at replicating the feel of an outside ride, right? So I tried those for a while, hated it for sure. Then I kind of went to, maybe one of these spin cycle bikes would be okay, So I bought one of these spin cycle bikes. And the big wheel on the front acts like a pretty cool flywheel, so it felt more natural. But they're kind of all built with a one-size-fits-all mentality, which means one size fits nobody.
Yeah.
They're super uncomfortable. They're not natural. You can't get in your natural position. So that kind of was a bust. And then I went to, these were actually pretty cool. How many folks remember Kreitler rollers? Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, these things were actually, they improved your skill, but they were freaking dangerous as hell, I remember I was riding in my basement. This was in Rochester, New York. So, a little bit longer winter. So I was riding in my basement watching a Buffalo Bills game. And they did this, they did a punt return for a touchdown. And I completely forgot I was riding on the rollers, threw my hands up in the air, and crashed rather spectacularly. So the rollers were pretty cool, but they weren't exactly the easiest things in the world to master, for sure. Well, thankfully for all of us, that's all in the past now, because smart trainers, and we'll talk a little bit about what a smart trainer is, and these training platforms like Zwift and TrainerRoad and Rouvy, and frankly, there's a bunch of them popping up these days. I did a Google for indoor cycle training platform, and I managed to come up with a dozen or so of them. So, Zwift is clearly the leader of the pack here, but they've got such a dominant position that others are trying to take share away from them. So, what's a smart trainer? A smart trainer is pretty cool because it's electronic, number one, and it can vary the resistance electronically based upon an input from your computer. So in other words, it connects up to your computer, and then you've got an app on your computer that controls the resistance of the trainer. And that resistance can be triggered by you virtually being in a virtual world, and you start going uphill. The trainer starts getting harder to pedal. You start going downhill, gets a little bit easier to pedal. So that's what a smart trainer is. It connects up to your computer, and there's an app on either your computer, your iPhone, your Android device, your iPad, or whatever you got, that's controlling the resistance of the trainer. And these platforms like Zwift and TrainerRoad and Rouvy, they're the apps that control the trainer. So some of these apps like Rouvy throw you in a virtual world. And Rouvy throws you in a realistic virtual world, and you pedal this course, and if you go uphill, your trainer gets harder. If you go downhill, the trainer gets easier. It's really very lifelike from that perspective. TrainerRoad's a little bit different focus. That's more focused on doing workouts. So in TrainerRoad, they've got a library of workouts, or you can load your own workout, and then it will vary the resistance of your trainer based upon the steps of the workout. So if you're doing interval training or something like that, it will then, be hard for 3 minutes and easy for 3 minutes and hard for 3 minutes, easy for 3 minutes, whatever. Zwift is kind of unique because it does both. You can do workouts on Zwift and you can ride in a virtual world. And Zwift really is kind of the leader of the pack here. So we're going to spend most of our time talking about Zwift. I was one of the early beta testers for Zwift. Geez, I guess it was 5 years ago now, something like that. And there was literally nobody on the platform. When you went on to Zwift, you were riding by yourself. In fact, very, very early on, Kim, I don't know when you jumped on. If you were on level 45, you were probably an early tester as well.
2017 was my first year.
Okay. All right. So I've been on a little bit longer. But in those early years, they actually had to put fake riders in there so that you were riding with somebody. They put little ghost riders in there so that you could actually ride with somebody. I just read yesterday that they hit their maximum. They've been going crazy since COVID, as you can imagine. They've grown so significantly since the pandemic. I think prior to the pandemic, their highest concurrent rider count was like 16,000 people or something like that. So that was in like the winter or about a year ago, probably. It was like 16,000 people. They hit 43,000 people yesterday. 43,000 people riding, at the same time in Zwift. So they've literally exploded due to the COVID situation. And that's somewhat good and bad. It can get a little unstable. There was one of our riders tried to do one of the Tour de Zwift stages. I heard you said you were doing that, Kim. You did.
Yeah, I did it. I did the long ride, the Greater London Flat 25.
Yeah, I did that today. I did that at noon today. But there was like 10,000 people on this ride, and the Zwift was having a little stability issues. So yeah, it's good and bad, a little bit good and bad. But, it's an amazing platform, frankly. If you think about, again, what we used to have to do to train in the wintertime versus what you can do now, it's pretty staggering.
Yeah.
So, so what can you do with Zwift? It is pretty amazing. It sort of blends the mentality of a video game with a virtual riding experience.
Don't forget the social network part, Jack.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's the most social. And I think that's why they have grown so fast, is they did take advantage of the social network part of it. You can ride with thousands of other people or with just your friends.
Exactly. Amazing, I love it. Yeah.
Pretty amazing environment. So, it projects and you sort of customize this avatar. It gives you a base, but you can put your own kits on, and you can have short socks or long socks, or you can wear a helmet or not a helmet. You have long hair. I should have long hair on Zwift. They would look. So you customize an avatar. So that's sort of like the video game part of it. But then it projects you into this virtual world, and there are actually, I think, now 10 virtual worlds. They're adding them all the time. Some are real, like London and Innsbruck. Some are fake, like I don't know if you can see over on the left-hand side there, you're like sprinting away from a dinosaur. You can ride through an active volcano. You can ride down Route 66 in the desert Southwest. It's pretty entertaining, to tell you the truth. There's lots of stuff that you can that you can do in here, and I don't forget how many routes there are or how many courses. I think there's like 130 individual courses. You can ride on your own and turn left and right as you want to, but there's also like 130 or so some pre-programmed courses. So again, kind of limitless is what you can do. And with Zwift, you can ride solo. You can just log in and ride solo. Obviously with thousands of people riding at the time, you're never riding solo, but it's different versus doing an organized group ride. So an organized group ride can be something huge, like this Tour de Zwift that we're talking about. There might be, this afternoon when I did it at noon, there were 3,000 people in my group. Or it can be a small meetup of WCCC members. I know we've got members that do the Monday night ride, and they do the Wednesday night ride in the winter via Zwift. So it's just a bunch of WCC members that have gotten together and decided they wanted to ride together. So you can do, you can ride solo, you can do these group rides. Zwift does have a library of workouts as well. Like I said, you can do a Zwift, you can do a Zwift workout. And if you're really super competitive, you can do a race. I mean, racing has gotten huge on Zwift. They just had the E-Worlds, the UCI E-Cycling World Championship on Zwift. They did Tour de Zwift, or the Tour de France on Zwift over the summer. I mean, it's become quite the racing platform as well. And the advantage of racing on Zwift is you don't crash. I mean,
and no braking.
Yeah, no braking. That is a little bit bizarre going downhill with no brakes. That's right.
And no steering either at this point.
Oh yeah, there is no steering.
Yeah.
They did add steering. Not in the race.
Only for the mountain bike. Only for the mountain bikes though.
No, Kim. You can buy what's called a Steer Zero, and you can actually now steer on all of the Zwift courses. I don't have one yet, but
It's a platform, yeah. Your bike goes on the platform. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Zwift also happens to be the platform we've selected for our GreshFit virtual training group course workouts. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But we kind of looked at all of the available options. We looked at Trainer Road. We looked at a few others. And it turned out Zwift looked like it was the best for us to offer the virtual training programs. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So we're going to skip this part. So what do you need for Zwift, right? I mean, what's the basic for Zwift? The basic items that you need for Zwift is you need a trainer. It doesn't have to be a smart trainer. It actually can be a classic trainer. It can be a fluid trainer, and I'll explain a little bit how that works in a second. But you need a trainer. You obviously need some type of bike to put on the trainer. You need something to run Zwift, and that can be a laptop computer, it can be a desktop computer, it can be Windows, it can be Apple, it doesn't matter. A tablet, smartphone, either iOS or Android, either one. They have an iOS app, they have an Android app, and they also have an Apple TV app. So if you've got an Apple TV, they've got an Apple TV app as well. So that's sort of like, well, and one more thing, you absolutely need a fan. Bigger the better, right? You don't realize how much cooling effect you get by riding outdoors. So you absolutely need a fan. So that's like the bare minimum, right? You can go crazy with this. Other things that you probably I would consider is, if you got an old TV floating around or a monitor or something like that, maybe connecting that up to your computer or your smartphone or something. It's nice to have it's nice to have a table and a stand nearby so you can set your water bottle on it, maybe a snack or, whatever. It's nice to have your computer handy that you can pick it up and whatever. Floor mat's probably a good idea because let's face it, you're going to sweat a lot. Even if you got a fan, you're going to sweat. So there are a lot more with this of things you can do. You can go pretty crazy with this.
Jeff, can I add one thing to
absolutely?
Last year, I plunked down the money and bought a rocker panel, and it was the best dollars I ever spent for indoor training.
Well, Greg just built an awesome one of his own. I can't believe what he did on his own. You ask him to show it to you. I mean, my God, it's amazing. Yeah, they are pretty cool. In fact, that's my next lead in. Thanks, Kim.
Okay, sorry.
I said that's the next lead in, so thank you. So
I didn't mean to step on your talk.
No, absolutely. This is much better if we're interactive here. That's for sure. So, I tried to put together some, and then again, Kim, feel free, or anybody feel free to chime in here. Just some examples with setups. So if you wanted to go absolutely bare bones basic, you can run this thing on a smartphone. Probably not too easy to see, but you can run this thing on a smartphone. Like I said, you don't have to have a smart trainer. Zwift supports a number of classic trainers as long as you have a speed and cadence sensor on your bike. So it's figured out, it's figured out the power curves for certain classic trainers. So it knows if you're going 28 miles an hour on a Kurt Kinetic that you're putting out X watts of power. It knows that because they have all the algorithms. So if you have a cadence sensor and a speed sensor on your bike with a supported classic trainer, it works just fine. Like I said, you need a fan, put a towel on the floor. That's probably the most basic setup you could, basic setup you can get. And obviously you need a Zwift subscription. I think it's like $15 a month. So, that's a must. I forget. I think there's a 2-week trial period or something of that nature. So
Very limited though. Yeah.
You can try it for a while and see if you like it.
Yep.
So that's, you most likely have the tablet and the smartphone. You most likely got sensors on your bike. You got a towel, and you might have a fan. So that's probably a pretty low budget right there to get into Zwift from that perspective.
Hey, Jack, one thing that I have, it's missing out here is a heart monitor as well.
Oh, yeah. Yep, absolutely, yeah.
And what's interesting is that I tried using my heart monitor that I used with my Garmin on my bicycle, and because it's a dumb heart monitor, it just connects to my Garmin, not to anything else.
Okay. Good.
I actually had to go out and buy another Garmin heart monitor so it would sync with the.
Yeah. I think it needs either a Bluetooth or an ANT plus heart rate monitor.
Right.
I strongly recommend the Wahoo Ticker X because that supports both Bluetooth and ANT, which means you can wear it inside or when you're out on the road.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. That's
a good one.
Does that? Do you have a problem syncing it though to both devices? Because that was my problem with the Garmin.
Nope.
Okay.
We can talk offline, Art, if you want to. I can explain how you do it, but I didn't have any trouble at all, and it syncs fine to both Zwift and my Garmin device simultaneously when I'm indoors.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
Yep. That's the same monitor. That's the same version I've got. I've got a Wahoo Ticker as well. Yep. So stepping it up a little bit, instead of running it on a tablet or a smartphone or Apple TV or something like that, step it up to a laptop. Again, any laptop will work. There are 2 types of smart trainers. There are what's called wheel-on smart trainers, and those are ones where you leave your rear wheel, that's hard for me to say, on the bike, and then you just connect it up. There's a little roller mechanism on the back of the trainer, and this is what you've got with the CompuTrainer, Michelle. That's a wheel-on smart trainer. There are what's called wheel-off or direct drive, where the trainer has a cassette on it, and you take your rear wheel off. And you put your bike without the rear wheel on the trainer. So those are a little bit higher end, probably a little bit more expensive, a little bit more accurate because you don't have the variability of the pressure on the tire and how much tension you put on it and that type of stuff. But clearly, I used a wheel-on smart trainer with Zwift for years before I upgraded to a direct drive. In fact, I used it for the first year with a Kurt Kinetic Classic trainer, and again, I had a very fine experience with it. I can't underestimate. Of anything on here, the thing I would say is that you really should upgrade is a fan. Don't underestimate the value of keeping yourself cool when you're on the bike indoors. It's the easy thing to say, I don't want to spend $100 on a fan or something of that nature. But man, I'll tell you, it makes a huge difference if you could have a nice flow of air in front of you. It makes a huge difference. I certainly, with the way I sweat, I absolutely need a floor mat, or else I would, things wouldn't smell too good in the basement after a while. So a floor mat, I think, is a good pick as well. And then, if you really wanted to go nuts, you can get because what happens with Zwift is it is a game, right? It's a computer game. So the better computer you've got, the better the graphics get. So, I mean, it runs on a smartphone and it runs just fine. I used that for a while, but after you start spending some time on this, if you want to step it up a little bit and get really nice graphics, you will go, if you go up to a gaming computer and, pair that up with a nice large monitor or big TV or something. Yeah, it's not bad. Not bad at all. And again, this is where, again, you can, the good thing with this is that Zwift created this entire smart trainer market. And what you used to have to pay, well over $1,000 for, now you can get for probably $500. I mean, there's been a trickle down effect. So a lot of the stuff that you could only get on the highest end trainers now you can get on the middle, on the middle of the road trainers. And they're, again, for starting up, they're just perfect. They're just fine. Kicker makes this thing called a headwind fan. That's actually pretty cool. Tim's got one in the studio that the faster you go, it simulates that you're riding faster, the faster it blows the air. Or you can connect it up to your heart rate monitor, and the higher your heart rate, the more the fan blows. So, I mean, that's pretty cool.
Does the kicker work with any smart trainer, or does it only work with the Wahoo trainers?
It works with any. Yeah, the kicker headwind, I think it'll work with anything.
Actually, the heart rate function will work with anything, but this to simulate speed, it's actually taking that speed from the kicker trainer. So it actually would only work with a kicker.
Oh, for the I was talking about the heart
speed
rate one. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have it set up to work with heart rate, it would work with any trainer.
Exactly. But if you want it to simulate the speed in Zwift, the wind speed in Zwift, you would have to pair it up with a kicker smart trainer.
Got it.
Thanks.
But hey, that could change in a firmware update. Who knows, right?
Yeah. And the one thing to think about when a fan, is, and again, I hate to, keep harping on the fan, but, having a remote, so you don't have to get off the bike to change its speed.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I've got ours hooked up to, if I say her word, Alexa, she's going to wonder what I'm looking for. But, I've got ours set up to Alexa, and I tell Alexa to turn on the fan. I would probably just turn the fan on.
I was doing the Tour de Zwift today, and my fan is off to the side, but it's not Bluetooth, and I forgot to turn it on. So, 5 minutes ago, I'm sweating like a pig. I had to get off the bike, walk over to the fan, turn it on, get back on the bike, and I was left in the dust after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Kim, you mentioned the rocker plate.
Yeah.
What a rocker plate is, for those of you that don't know what a rocker plate is it puts your trainer and a bike on a platform, and it rocks back and forth. So when you stand up and like you're climbing, you're standing on the bike, it rocks just like it would in real life, when you're out on the bike. So it provides a much more lifelike feel to riding indoors. And that's one of the things that I think today's training environments indoors, they provide a much more lifelike experience. What I used to hate about the old equipment is that, there was this monster dead spot at the bottom of your pedal stroke that just didn't feel, it just didn't feel natural at all. But now, with today's stuff, is you can get a very realistic pedal stroke and feel, so it doesn't feel anywhere near as foreign as it as it used to be.
Jack, the most important thing about the rocker plate, well, I agree with everything you said. The single most important thing I find is that it lets me ride longer, because there's a lot of scientific evidence that shows if you sit on a static mounted bike, you're going to have hot spots on your bike seat.
Yep.
And after about an hour, you're going to be in a lot of pain. So what I've found is that by using the rocker panel, I can extend my rides out to 90 or 120 minutes and not feel like somebody smacked me in the butt with one of those fraternity paddles.
Yeah, absolutely. Does yours go back and forth as well, Kim?
It's one of the who is it? It's the Rocker Pro. So it's just a side to side. I didn't want to spring for the $1,000 for the Ceres one.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. Isn't it?
Yeah.
So I was talking about Greg earlier. He sent me he sent Tim and I a little video of what he created, and I think it was something very similar to the Saurus one, and I think it cost him like $225 out of pocket. And
He made it.
He made it. I told him he ought to go into he ought to take orders from the rest of us. I'll tell you.
He needs to share that.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a company coming out now that's making a knockoff of the Saurus one. They're taking pre-orders now. I forget the name of them, but they're about $400.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet they're going to come down in price because that's just that's nuts for that one.
It's a board.
It's like the Garmin table, right? I got that same table as a Garmin table, but I mean mine cost $135 as opposed to $290.
Yeah, because the Saurus thing is really nothing but two pieces of multi-density fiber board with leaf springs, car leaf springs underneath,
it's got a leaf spring in it,
and some tracks.
Cool? Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, we're yakking too much. Sorry about that. Sure. Well, you got to take that into consideration. You got to take where it's coming from into consideration. You've ever ridden with me, you know that at every stop sign, I squeeze the water out of my helmet because I'm sweating so much. So yes, it's very important for me.
Michelle, he speaketh the truth. I can actually show you plots that my heart rate continues to go up on Zwift even when my power doesn't go up, and it's solely a function of my body temperature. So, Jack, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, we're my wife and I, we have side by side setups in the basement. She glistens. I have a lake underneath me, and she's like barely dripping. So, to each their own, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing that that if you really wanted to toy this thing out, get all the toys, is the Kicker Climb. So what that does is when you're going uphill, it connects to the fork of your bike. When you're going uphill, it raises the bike up. When you're going downhill, it takes the bike down. I mean, so again, you can go nuts with this stuff, just like anything. I mean, you can do it for very economically, or you can go over the top with it. Most people settle in the middle somewhere. Just again, if you were thinking about doing this, I probably, you can get away with a basic setup, but I'd probably recommend to anybody they take that next step up and actually kind of go more towards the intermediate side of the equation, which again is more expensive, but I think you're going to have a much better experience with it. So any other questions on Zwift?
I do. For the intermediate setup, it would be interesting for you to give us an idea on the wheel on Smart Trainer, which one, and where you get the floor mat.
Sure. Okay.
Just get an idea of the cost of this.
Tim, you know that better than I do, since you've happened to have some in stock. So
yeah.
What are the alternatives in that? I mean, I know of the Kicker, I know of the Tacx. I know I think Kurt Kinetic offers a wheel on. What do you know?
Saurus has one. Saurus has one.
Cyclops, I think, has one.
Yeah, there's a number. Yeah, there's a number of them out there. I strictly do Wahoo Fitness just to, I guess, for simplicity, just to kind of keep that relationship and really get familiar with like their warranty department and stuff like that, so I can keep everybody up and running. But their wheel on trainer is called the Kicker Snap. That's a $499 device, and it's great. I mean, it works really well. It's bomb-proof, very smooth. A lot of people tell me when they ride it, they feel a very similar experience to a direct drive in terms of the inertia, assuming that they have a nice trainer-specific tire on their wheel. It's super smooth, has a pretty hefty piece of equipment, heavy flywheel, and then controls the resistance and does everything else. And also with a good trainer tire, it's pretty darn quiet too.
And that's another thing to keep in mind here. Some of these trainers are quieter than others, and you can go online and, folks like DC Rainmaker or whatever have done reviews of all these different trainers, and they also will tell you in those reviews what the decibel level of the trainers are. So that is something, it doesn't matter much to me in my basement, but if you're in an apartment with people above or below you, that might make a little bit of a difference. And the size and the weight of the flywheel is something that Tim mentioned that I think is pretty important when you're comparing different trainers, because it's that flywheel that gives it the more realistic feel. It's what sort of smooths out the dead spot at the end, at the bottom of your pedal stroke. So, there are exceptions, but in general terms, a heavier flywheel is better than a light flywheel.
How about floor mats? Is there companies that are known for their good floor mats?
Geez, I just got mine. I just went online and just I don't even know if I have a cycling floor mat. I just went online and said exercise floor mat, and I got a rubber floor mat. So
a yoga mat will work fine. Just a plain old yoga mat would work.
That's what I did. I went to Sailor Trading, got a yoga mat for $15.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works well. And another thing that's good is just anything that's like a kind of a dense rubber. You can go to Home Depot and get something like that. I mean, outside of being a sweat mat, when you have this smart trainer running with that big heavy flywheel, there's vibrations, and it'll soak that up and really protect your equipment over the years.
And there's actually some give going to the right and to the left as well with the softer mat as well. You get more of a feel being on a bike, because it's not just upright, but you're going a little bit left and a little bit to the left.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things that I didn't mention, is that some of the trainers now actually are building that into the trainer itself. I mean, I have a Tax or TAC-X or however you pronounce it, and it has some side-to-side motion built into it. The newer kickers, the new kickers have side-to-side motion built into it. Not nowhere near as much as you get on a full rocker plate, as Kim was mentioning, but it does offer a little bit of side-to-side movement.
Right.
Any other questions on Zwift?
Now, one thing I joined, there's a Facebook group for Zwift. There's probably many, I bet. But I've learned so much from a Facebook group for Zwifters that it's made a big difference as far as, because there's a lot of different options and adjustments you can do. And joining this group, there's a lot of nuances. And having that information and be able to ask questions, for me, that's new to it, has been very helpful.
Yeah.
The other place that's really good is Zwift Insider.
That's what I was just going to mention. Yeah, the Zwift Insider is awesome.
Yep.
So I got a question, Jack. So how do you complete a route? So I'll pick a route for one of the worlds, and it'll say it's like 18 kilometers, 27 kilometers, whatever it is, and I'll ride 50 kilometers and I won't complete the route.
Really?
Yeah.
What happens, though, and that's a very good question. What happens is that, number one, it may say 23 miles, but a lot of times there's a lead-in, maybe 2 or 3 miles, okay? So actually the route you're doing may be another 2 or 3 miles because there's a lead-in, and then the route starts.
Well, and maybe it's just not telling you that you're completing the route.
I've ridden it too. I go past, I can see an actual start and stop line, and I've gone past it, but I don't get any route complete badge.
No, I don't think it'll tell you. It only gives you that badge once when you do it for the first time.
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, so like I said, if I go to there's new routes now because there's new roads in Utopia, and I went to go do one the other day, and I rode, at least 50% longer than the route was.
Wow.
And didn't complete it.
That's wild because
it is.
Which one was it, Chris?
I forget. It's the one that sort of cuts through. I forget the name of it. It's
you know why? I bet we did it on a workout.
Well, we definitely did the road. We definitely were on the one road.
Yeah, I bet you we did it on a workout. So that's when it that's when it credited you with for doing the route. And when you did it on your own, it didn't tell you that you did it again. That's my bet. I bet you we did it on a workout because I did.
That tells them no more workouts, Jack.
Yeah. Because I tried those new routes. In fact, I did all except the jungle one. We've done all those new routes on our workouts.
Well, yeah. At least I'm not going crazy.
Yeah, no, you're not. No, I screwed you up. Sorry about that.
No hey, problem. Jack, could you spend a minute or two on the FTP situation as far as measuring your wattage and everything? I find that, I mean, I think I figured it out, but hearing from an expert would be very helpful for me.
That's a good point.
Before you do that, could you just unshare your screen so we can see everyone again?
Sure. Yeah, I was going to start with that. Yeah. Got it. One of the tests will make you ride for an hour. Now, the purists will say that's the only way to figure out your FTP, but there are other ways to do it to estimate your FTP to a level where it's close enough. Come on, we're not pros, so we don't have to know it to the exact number, right? The important thing is if you're really trying to figure out if you're improving or whatever, is to stay consistent in whatever way you use to calculate your FTP. So the classic way is what's called a 20-minute field test. And that implies riding as hard as you can for 20 minutes straight. Let me tell you, that's not fun. It is the most accurate way to estimate your FTP, but there are other ways to do it as well. There's something called a ramp test, and Zwift has both of these built in. They have a field test built in, or they have a ramp test built in, and a ramp test is a little bit different. What it does is it will keep upping the intensity a little bit. Was it every minute, Tim, or is it every 30 seconds? It's every minute.
Yeah, every minute, about 6%.
Yeah, so it raises it up, a little bit, 6% every minute until, frankly, you can't go anymore. And then it calculates and estimates your FTP based upon that effort. Now, another thing you can do is just ride on Zwift. If you ride on Zwift, it'll guess based upon your rides what your FTP is.
Right.
Now, it might not be right, but at least it's going to estimate it for you, and then you can fine tune it from there. Like I said, if you're doing one of our virtual workouts, we do them, twice a week, 9 o'clock and 9:30 and 6 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we're telling you this is supposed to be at 95% of your FTP. And if you can sing a song, you're not working hard enough. Or if we say this should be a easy portion, this should be a recovery, and if you're breathing so hard you can't talk, that's not right either. So we can dial you in pretty close, frankly, without doing an FTP test. But the best thing to do is to determine some type of FTP test, and then if you're interested in the training, you probably want to know if you're improving or if you're degrading or whatever. You can do them regularly and track your progress. But again, it's most important that you stay consistent in the method that you use and, frankly, stay consistent with the equipment that you use. Because if you do it on a CompuTrainer in studio with Tim and then go home and do it on a KICKR, it's going to be different. Even though these things are supposed to be calibrated, there's always going to be a little bit of variability in the rate, the power levels of each of all of these devices. So stay consistent. If you're doing it at home, keep doing it at home. If you're doing it via a ramp test, continue to do it via a ramp test, and so forth.
Well, it's interesting.
Yes, that's true.
All you got to do is lower your weight.
Yeah, you can do that.
Well, it's funny.
Hey, Jack, could you share the actual calculation? My understanding, I think, is that it's your wattage divided by your weight in kilograms. Is that correct?
No, that's watts per kilogram.
That's a different measure.
That's a different measurement. Yeah, that's watts per kilogram.
Because like on Swift, it tells you you're doing 2.3 or 2.4.
Yes, that's right.
What's that calculation?
The calculation it's the number of watts that you're putting out, right? So if you're riding really hard, maybe you're putting out 250 watts or whatever. And then, you told it, it takes the weight that you put in when you set up your account. So it takes that. So then it just divides the two. It says if you're doing 250 watts and you're, 75 kilograms, it's going to just divide 250 by 75, and that's watts per kilogram.
Right.
And that's really kind of that's a main driver of how fast you're going on Zwift.
Right. What's good though is that, when you're riding, you have all these people riding with you, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
You ride with people with similar skills or energy expenditure.
Right.
So I'm like a 2.3, a 2.4. I find a guy riding 2.3, but we ride together, realizing that we have equal, skills.
Yeah, that's one of the things you kind of, the things you start, in the real world, in real life, you figure out who you're close to by riding with them. And
drafting
in Zwift, you got a little shortcut because you can see, you don't know how strong somebody is just by looking at them in the real world. On Zwift, you can cheat a little bit and see what type of wattage they're putting out, what their watts per kilogram are.
Yeah.
I did that Tour de Zwift this morning, right? I did it at noon today. And a group of folks went by me at 3.5, watts per kilogram. I know I can't hang with that.
Right.
I can hang with 3.1, 3.2, something like that. But if they're constantly going at 3.5, I don't know way I'm going to hang with that. So I just let them by.
Yeah.
Right.
Jack, one more addition I'll make to this section. There's a free app called Zwift Power you can sign up for, and it will spit out statistics on your rides like you wouldn't believe. It'll give you your 5-second power, your 10-second power, 20, 30, a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and will rank you versus all the Zwifters who are on the app.
That's depressing.
Yeah, it is for me because I'm a firm D, believe me.
And one of the things, again, we get a little bit back to the training. I'll be the first to admit, I hate training. I am not a fan. I don't do it because I like it. I do it because I know it's effective. How I got to figure that out is, Tim, how long you been doing this?
2017 is when I started on Zwift.
Yeah, and Tim Gresh, how long have you been doing the indoor or the winter training sessions? 7
since 2000, technically since 2009.
2009, yikes! So
I met you in like 2010 or 11.
We, my wife and I, always do this. We actually started doing it when we were when we lived in Texas. It's called the Easter Hill Country Ride. It's down in the hill country of Texas, down around the Austin, San Antonio area. It's a beautiful area of Texas, very unknown, very, very little known, but it's beautiful riding, gorgeous riding, but it's an Easter. And for us, Easter, can be pretty early, especially when we lived in Rochester, New York. It could be pretty early. When we moved down here, it's not quite as bad, but Easter, March isn't exactly the height of our season yet, So we started doing these indoor training classes with Tim, and we went down to Kerrville, Texas, in the hill country to do this ride. Went, holy crap! We're in much better shape this year than we've ever been we've ever been before. We really enjoyed it versus endured it. So I've been a fan ever since. Like I said, I can't say I like it. I would much rather get outside and ride on my bike, and even on Zwift, I would rather just ride in Zwift. But I know the value of the training program because it's structured. When you're just out riding, I have no structure when I'm out riding. I can't force myself to go, okay, tomorrow's hill day and Thursday's sprint day or whatever. That's not me. I just go out, I ride, and I have fun. But when I'm doing a training class. And the way Tim builds the training classes is that they build on them. You know, each week you get 2 different new training classes. They build upon each other. They get harder. Frankly, they get harder every week. So you improve. You know, your fitness level, not just, you know, I was happy if my fitness level stayed the same over the winter. And now I can actually say I'm probably as fit in April as I am throughout the rest of the summer. In fact, I get lazy over the rest of the summer and only do my riding. And while my endurance probably is a little bit better because I'm riding for a longer period of time, my fitness is probably not as good as it is when I come off of the training classes.
Yeah.
Jack, I just want to echo that. So last year was the first time I did the training classes, and I was in such good shape at the beginning of the season that I actually wanted to start racing again in the Masters class, but then COVID hit.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was the first time I've ever done really structured stuff, and the difference was unbelievable.
That's what we like to hear.
Yeah, really, it was great. That's why I'm still doing it.
Good.
You know, it's actually kind of cool. We do these on Tuesdays and Thursday nights, and we have 3-minute 3-minute recovery sessions. There's so much chatting going on, you forget to recover.
Well, and that's the other thing about Zwift. I mean, you can actually text people. All right, I got a twin brother. We ride virtually together, and we Zoom each other, so we can see. We can actually, we FaceTime each other, so I can see him riding virtually, physically, and him can see me. You know,
that's one of the things we added this year to the Greshfit one is we have accompanying Zoom meetings.
Yeah,
so you got the Zoom meeting as well as the Greshfit workout. And like I said, we're all chatting, and it's funny because there's a morning session and there's an afternoon session. The morning session, everybody has their video on, but nobody says anything. In the evening, nobody has their video on, but everybody's chatting like crazy. Yeah. So it's kind of funny the two different personalities the groups have taken on.
Well, the other feature of Zwift too is it actually has a text feature where you can text other riders. Yep. I mean, I'm working so hard. I don't know how people get time to text. You know, I don't get that at all.
I don't get that either, Art. I don't get it either.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out.
Good comment, Michelle.
Yeah,
I love Discord.
We kind of went away from it this year because, you know,
I had so many problems with Discord.
Yeah, we had troubles with it last year. It was a little complicated. Plus, we couldn't do the video. So we went away from the Discord. So we paid for a Zoom, we paid for the Zoom, subscription, whatever. Obviously, it's free to everybody else, but we paid for the Zoom subscription, and it's. And another thing that it allowed us to do that I couldn't figure out how to do on Discord is when you're doing a workout with us, and Chris, you know this, is we're asking you to ride at a certain cadence. So we're asking you to ride at like 90 RPM or 100 RPM or 60 RPM or something like that. We have music that's beat synchronized to the cadence that you're supposed to be riding at, and I can broadcast that over Zoom, and I never could figure out how to do that on Discord. And you got to put up with my selection of music, but other than that,
it helps.
You're a great DJ, Jack. I like the selection, it's all about the classic rock.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Hey, Jack, I grew up in Buffalo, so.
Oh, did you really? I grew up in Tonawanda.
I went to school in Amherst, and I haven't lived there for like probably 55 years, but that was my hometown for years.
Yeah, I grew up in
obviously.
Yep,
being a Bills fan,
they've had a great season this year.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Went to Saturday. Could be a good year, I think.
Jack,
soon as you said-
Jack, I'm from the Southern Tier. I grew up down in Cattaraugus County.
All
I
right.
know where that is.
Cool.
Yeah.
My wife's from
Fredo-
Ithaca.
Fredonia, Ithaca. Yeah.
I went to
So, Jack, I
my
have a
wife and I went to Geneseo. Yeah.
So did I. That's
Really?
undergrad. Yeah, I graduated in 71.
I
Yeah, I think Frank
Yeah.
had a question there.
yeah, sorry.
That's okay. If you're using an iPad, how
Yeah.
can you do Zoom and Zwift at the same time? Or can't you?
If you're using an iPad, what I would probably do if you've got a phone, I would do Zoom on the phone and the Zwift on the iPad.
That's what I
So you
did.
can't
I
do-
did
you can't do it
FaceTime
from
on
the
the
same
phone.
device.
Yes.
No, you can't do it from the same
Not from the
device.
same one. Yeah.
Right. And Jack, you didn't mention the Swift Companion app as well.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I know how
Yes,
we want to
complicated,
get,
yes.
but there is a Zwift companion app that runs on your iPhone that you can control a lot of the in-game stuff with instead of having to get up and touch your computer screen or something like that. So
I find it most useful for the events.
very
Yeah.
useful. Yeah, very useful. Yeah, very useful. So Kim, my wife and I graduated in '76. So you were just leaving when we were coming in. How about that? You know Jeff Porter?
I'm afraid I don't know.
Yeah, he's a club member too. He's also a Geneseo grad. Now he's 10 years later than us, but so he's an '80s grad.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Small world.
Yeah, sorry, we got definitely off topic. Sorry, Michelle.
It was so interesting.
They changed that a couple of weeks ago.
Oh,
Yep. Yep. Bluetooth or ENT plus. Yeah, Bluetooth. There's something to be said for a wired connection.
Hardwired.
Michelle, there's a whole pairing thing you
Michelle.
got to do.
One thing
There's a yeah. No, this is easy, Michelle. There's a little wrench on the first screen. Push the wrench and it'll find, there's a pair button and it'll find the thing automatically for you.
Well, the one thing I found, and Jack's brought it up a couple times in the class, is that if you use your trainer's building cadence, especially in some of the workouts where it's a higher cadence, it gets out of whack.
It
Yeah.
loses it, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so last week I was I didn't switch my cadence right, and it kept going all over the place, and I was like, oh, my cadence must be out, the battery must be worn out. Then I went back into settings during, and I saw it was using a trainer's cadence.
Yeah.
And I switched it to my regular cadence thing, and it was fine.
Yep.
Yep. Same experience here.
Yeah.
You mentioned trainer. I'm sorry. You mentioned a trainer tire. How important is that? Is that a big deal? I just thought it would wear your tire out a little bit.
More than a little bit.
yeah. It's not a huge deal. Some tires are louder than others. Like I was riding with somebody on Zwift the other week, and it was like they were in a sawmill or something like that. It was crazy. So these trainer-specific tires will have a compound that is a little bit more quiet and holds up to the heat better. And if you use your tire that you ride outside, it's going to flatten it out in the middle, and it's going to change your handling a little bit. It's just generally not recommended for safety. You can even go another step further and just buy a cheap, heavy 700C wheel. Put a cheap cassette on there, your trainer tire, and then that's your trainer wheel. We do that all the time at the studio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
or you can use an old tire, Sandy, that you've got laying around. What you don't want to use is one of your good outdoor riding tires.
Yeah.
And one
Yeah.
without tread would be a lot quieter than one with.
Right. Well, I don't have anything with tread. Yeah, because normally if you're in and out, you're not going to be changing tires. You're going to,
Right.
No.
Yeah, that's where
Right.
that's where getting that wheel comes in. And one of the best tires, non-trainer specific tire, would be just a Grand Prix or Continental Gator Skin is like it's awesome as a trainer tire.
Anyway, so yeah.
If you've got an old bike, the other way to play this game is to have a beater bike, something old, cheap, relatively worn out that you just dedicate to training. That's what I did.
Just make sure it still fits you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've got my very first road bike, which is a Specialized Roubaix from like 10 years ago that, has all external cabling and all that stuff. So it's kind of a relic, but I've got it mounted on my trainer. It works great for that.
Okay. And that's a thought. Okay.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things with a wheel on trainer. You have to go through a process called, quote, calibration. So you ride on it for a while, warm everything up, and then you do what's called a spin down test, and that helps calibrate the trainer. That's one of the things of the advantages of the direct drive is you really don't have to go through that whole calibration process.
Well, you just do that the one time though, right?
No.
If you're doing it on the bike, if you're doing a wheel on trainer, you have to do it. You should do it every time. Because you're lost, and you might not, especially if you're putting your bike on and off the trainer, you're tightening up the tension on the rear wheel. You're
Well,
never
mine has
going
a spring. It just goes on. Mine has a spring. It just goes on the same tension every time.
Okay.
So unless you vary your pressure.
Unless you vary your pressure. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Jack, you mentioned that the kicker snap was a good start for a wheel on.
Yeah.
What's a good one for a wheel off?
Oh, God.
There's a ton of them.
Yeah.
But again, if we want to stay in the kicker range, they have what's called the kicker core. And then there's a really high-end kicker. So there's the kicker snap is the wheel on. Kicker core is their lower end wheel off trainer, and then the just plain old kicker is their high end. And the main difference is going to just be flywheel weight, and power accuracy, and the ability to what type of percentage climb that it can simulate. Like the high-end kicker can simulate a 20% grade climb, where the core, I think, can only do a 12%. Whoopee.
Frank, there are probably a dozen high-end manufacturers who make these things. The big problem right now is supply. They can be pretty hard to get because everybody and their brother wants to buy one.
Right.
How many got left, Tim?
So, Tim, do you have them in stock or not?
Yeah, I have a snap in stock, and then next week I'm getting a small shipment. Most of them are reserved, but a couple will be available of cores and then just the plain kicker.
And how much are the cores?
Yeah, the core is $8.99, and then the kicker is $12.99. New this year for the top end kicker, the $12.99 one is you don't have to calibrate that ever. And they have it's going to come out later this month, an actual wired port on it, so you can hardwire it. And apparently there's going to be some extra functionality coming with that. So that's kind of a cool thing that they've done on that. But the kicker core is great, just for like an all-around direct drive trainer. It's very smooth. It's really like last generation's kicker, top end kicker.
Yeah.
Let me ask you
That's
one
really
more.
all it is.
I'm cheap. So if I'm on Craigslist, whatever, see somebody advertise, is there a particular one that I should discount and not go after? Or are they both mostly they work?
Yeah, I would say anything.
Because I see that TAC X thing, and I see, then I see Wahoo. Are there any ones that just say don't get that because it doesn't work. Because I don't want to get something and then I not be able to make it work. Because I'm going to be at the top edge of my technical knowledge anyways.
Sandy, I have a Ceres. We used to be Cyclops, it's now Ceres, and I've liked it. I've done real well with that.
Yeah, I think if you stay with any of the name brands,
Okay.
they're all pretty good, frankly.
They will work. Okay.
Yeah.
just
Sandy,
stick with the
you can read the
name brands.
reviews. Yeah, go Google DC Rainmaker and read his guide for the
usually
trainers.
what I look for. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's usually what I look for.
Tim, I have one more question on the Kicker core. I guess it comes with its cassette.
The core does not come with a cassette, but I include it.
Okay.
So what I do is, whatever speed bike you plan to use on it, we put one of those on.
Okay. And the
And then
DI2 would work with it if it was the right cassette?
Mhm.
Yeah, DI2 would work with it, and then we always kind of do like a hardware setup. Put your bike on, make sure the indexing of your shifting is matching because it's shifting on the cassette that's on the kicker. So you just kind of get all that dialed in.
Yeah, make sure to match the
Good question.
cassette on the. Yeah, match the cassette on the trainer.
Yeah,
to
you
what
haven't
got
ridden
on your
with it
bike.
for a long time.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I got one of those European bikes. Our Irish friend sent it to me.
Awesome. DI2, can't go wrong with that.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever go back.
It's true.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for saying it. Yeah.
yeah. Well, what I would do,
There's nothing wrong with learning as you go. Truly,
Yeah,
the
just
more you
ride.
do it, the
Let
more
that
you
ride.
learn. Truly,
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
ride, and
Yeah.
you learn so much.
And there is a trial period. I believe it's a week. If I'm not-
Yeah. Yeah.
But it doesn't include full functionality though. So don't judge it on those 7 days.
Got it.
Michelle, there are a bunch of YouTube videos. If you go to the GCN guys who got great bike videos anyway, there's a whole video you can watch that will take you through starting up in Zwift, your first ride and all that stuff. I recommend that highly. It's about 20 minutes and it'll make you a lot smarter. It really will.
What is it, Tim? Can you repeat it? Steve K?
Yeah, in fact, yeah, I mean,
Set up a meetup
there's so
and-
much
and
there that it can be intimidating. So again, the easiest thing to do is just go out there and just kind of get used to it, ride it a little bit. Don't try anything fancy to start up with. I mean, I don't do a workout, don't do a group ride. Just get out there and ride on the
Go right and
platform.
left and go straight.
Yep.
It's
Yep, it's
So
fun.
you have to, so when you have your account, then what's the next step? You just pick any ride? Like, how does it work? Or training?
You have a choice of 3 worlds to ride in on any given day.
Okay.
You can always go to this fictional island in the South Pacific called Watopia, which is very cool. That's where the volcano and the dinosaur and all that stuff is.
Okay.
And then you've got a choice of 2 other guest worlds that you can ride, and they rotate on a regular basis.
London and Richmond right now, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really pretty amazing. Again, riding with somebody, any of us would be happy to, get on with you and walk you through it, whatever. It's cool, but for somebody that hasn't done it, I mean, I've been living with it for over 5 years, so it's second nature to me. but for somebody just getting into it, yeah, like what's a guest world? What's what are all these little options I have? How do I pair my stuff up? One of the first things we typically do, or I will do with, somebody new to the group is I'll schedule a practice session with them where we walk through doing everything once. So be happy to do that. It's easy.
Yeah.
Once you get to know it, it's easy.
Yeah. Zwift does not have a user's guide in a formal sense of the word, which is kind of strange for as much money as they've raised, all their mezzanine financing and all that stuff. There's rumors they're going to improve the user interface sometime next year, but I haven't seen it yet. I've been waiting.
One of the things I was
Who reads instructions? Who reads instructions, though?
Yeah, well, I was poking around because I created a couple of instructional videos for our workouts because there's a couple of kind of steps you have to do in a specific sequence, and Zwift itself. There's a ton of informational videos on Zwift itself. I mean, they don't have a user's guide, but they've done a really nice job on walking you through the basics of, just pairing your equipment, doing your first ride, whatever. So I wouldn't discount, the videos that you can find on Zwift, and then they're all like 3 minutes or 5 minutes or something. They're all pretty short.
So they are available. So
yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
There you go. Yeah. You need that peer pressure.
With no witnesses.
Cool.
Yeah. And that was a steal. $50.
Yeah.
Jack and Tim, thank you very much for your
Yeah, good job, you guys. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
bunch,
Hope you learned
guys.
something.
Take care, everybody.
And
Okay,
don't,
bye.
if you need, it's Jack at Greshfit or Tim at Greshfit.com. Got questions? Give us a
Thanks, Jack. Great job. Go
Good
Buffalo.
job. Good
Yeah,
job.
go Buffalo.
Thank you,
You
guys.
bet.
Yes.
All right.
right.
All right.
Can you-
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Michelle.